Four Marines are dead after an accident at Camp Pendleton. Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. The latest from the base tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. Also, technical experts get grilled on Capitol Hill about Obamacare.
This was a monumental mistake to go live and effectively explode on the launch pad.
The first enrollment numbers are out, and they're much lower than the White House wanted.
And what are the options to house and supervise convicted sexual predator Douglas Badger, his release in San Diego County? I'm Peggy Pico with answers from the DA's office. Plus, a proposal for North County's first BMX racetrack is opposed by a group called Friends of Kit Carson Park. We talk with leaders on both sides of the track.
And a life on the move can mean challenges for the children of migrant workers when it comes to getting an education. We'll look at one effort to help. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Four Marines are dead after an accident at Camp Pendleton today. KPBS senior editor Mark Sauer is in the newsroom with the latest. Mark, what do we know so far?
Details are few at this time, Dwayne. The Marines were killed around 11 this morning while engaged in what's being described as routine maintenance. They were clearing a training area of obstruction, according to a base spokesman.
And we know the base in Oceanside is large. Do we know exactly where this accident happened?
Well, it's in what's called the Zulu impact area, an artillery and bombing range near the center of the base. The victims' names have not been released pending notification of relatives, and Brigadier General John Bullard, the commanding general, offered his heartfelt prayers and condolences to their families.
And of course, we will continue to update this story as we get more information. KPBS senior editor Mark Sauer. Another San Diego-based ship may soon be on its way to the Philippines to help with relief efforts after Typhoon Haiyan. The Navy's activated the hospital ship Mercy. The move puts the ship on standby. If it's ordered to deploy, it could be ready to go in a few days and would get to the area by mid-December. The first enrollment numbers are out for the nation's healthcare insurance exchanges. Covered California says 35,000 people signed up in the first month. The total for the federal website, less than 27,000. Healthcare.gov's been plagued by glitches since it launched. And as Mark Smith of the Associated Press tells us, some tech experts got a congressional grilling today about the problems.
In the latest hearing on the bungled health plan launch, the White House IT chief said flaws are being fixed and Healthcare.gov's response rate is way up.
Just a few weeks ago, that rate was on average 8 seconds across the system, which is totally unacceptable. It's now actually under a second.
But skeptical Republicans want to know why the administration ignored warning signs in the first place on President Obama's signature issue.
This was a monumental mistake to go live and effectively explode on the launch pad.
The website woes were a big reason the health plan's first month saw a mere 27,000 actual sign-ups, way less than the 500,000 the administration once hoped for. At the hearing, a panel of administration tech officials was grilled on the lack of end-to-end testing, especially on whether the still-being-built website can protect personal data.
I'm trying to understand what you mean by fully tested. It was tested in accordance.
Fully tested? Holy cow, this is like a new low.
For Democrats, all this GOP concern for a health program they loathe is a bit much.
Nobody in this country believes that Republicans want to fix the website.
That said, Democrats are also worried, especially about the millions losing health coverage the president vowed they could keep.
I personally believe, even if it takes a change in the law, the president should honor the commitment the federal government made to those people and let them keep what they got.
Obama is said to be looking at administrative fixes that he can announce soon. And aides say he's open to changing the law, though given the toxic atmosphere on Capitol Hill, that could prove a heavy lift. Mark Smith, The Associated Press, The White House.
The two San Diego councilmen running for mayor stand on very different sides of a community plan in Barrio Logan. KPBS Metro reporter Sandia Dirk says both Kevin Faulkner and David Alvarez claim they are on the side of neighborhoods. She joins us from the News Center with this update. So what's the latest on the Barrio Logan community plan?
Well, the maritime industry is still fighting hard and fast to overturn the Barrio Logan community plan passed by the city council. Since the plan was passed in a couple of parts, it means to get the full plan on the referendum, they have to gather around 40,000 signatures twice. So they've done it once, and now they are at it again. And they are getting a boost from city councilman and mayoral candidate Kevin Faulkner. He had a staged campaign appearance outside in Albertsons, where paid signature gatherers were getting people to sign on the dotted line.
And what did Faulkner say about the plan?
Well, he uses the argument that because the plan would force businesses that supply the shipyards to get a permit before they could build, that would raise operating costs for shipbuilders, which would mean that they would lose Navy contracts. In other words, he sees the plan as trickling down and harming jobs. That isn't, however, what the signature gatherers were saying. They were telling voters that the plan would build condos on the waterfront and would rezone the port. Now, neither of those things are true.
Did Faulkner say anything about what the signature gatherers were saying?
He just said that he thought people were getting the right message, that the referendum effort was all about protecting jobs. Now, meanwhile, his opponent in the mayor's race and on this plan, Councilman David Alvarez, was also out and about on the campaign trail. He was with Donna Fry, touting open government. Alvarez says that maritime industry is vastly over-exaggerating the plan's impact. He says all it does is create oversight of businesses in the buffer zone to prevent them from storing toxic pollutants, something that had been a problem in Barrio Logan in the past.
KPBS Metro reporter Sandia Dirks. There is still no decision on whether a sexual predator will be housed in San Diego County. That could come as soon as Friday. But if it happens, where would he go and how would he be monitored? Peggy Pico finds out.
70-year-old Douglas Badger was one of the first to be classified as a sexually violent predator after a history of sexual sadism and assault of young men and one 16-year-old girl dating back to 1974. He served 10 years in prison. Soon after his release in 1991, he reoffended and was again convicted of sexual assault. On Friday, a Superior Court judge will discuss options to find Badger appropriate housing in San Diego County. Here with a closer look at the process is John Rice, San Diego Deputy District Attorney with the Sex Crimes Division. John, welcome.
Good evening, Peggy.
After Badger's prison sentence, the court determined he should be kept in custody as a sexually violent predator. How come? What's the criteria for that?
About 6 months before someone is scheduled to be released after committing a sexually violent offense, they're evaluated, and the evaluation is based on: 1, do they have the qualifying prior? 2, do they have a diagnosed mental disorder? 3, as a result of that mental disorder, are they likely to reoffend and commit a new offense? And then the 4th criteria is whether or not they could be safely treated in the community or required to be housed at a secure facility such as Coalinga State Hospital.
Well, back in 2006, I know Badger was allowed to live in a trailer on the outskirts of the Donovan State Prison in Otay Mesa. He was there for a little bit more than a year, and I believe since then has been in a mental state in a state hospital?
Yes, he was released for about a year in 2006. He decompensated due to some adjustments to his medication, and he returned to the hospital and has been there ever since.
Is there a standard of practice that you sort of do for sexually violent criminals as far as treatment in hospital confinement?
Coalinga State Hospital has gone through several different treatment programs. They have had cognitive behavioral treatment, they've had phase treatment, and they're now doing a Good Lives model treatment, which is basically trying to look at the positive things in a offender's life and focus on those in order to make sure that they have a stable living condition, and that way they won't reoffend.
On Friday, there's a hearing to look at Badger's housing options. So it's been determined he should go back into the community. What will be factored into deciding where he goes?
Well, a recommendation is made by Liberty Healthcare to the Department of State hospitals as to a residence where he could reside. Usually they're more rural areas of the county, and they look at the different things within that community that might be a risk for that particular offender. Once the recommendation is made, there'll be about a 2-week period of public comment in which people can contact the SAFE team, which is part of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, and give their input as to whether or not they think he should be released in that area.
If no suitable place is found, he's still released, though, right?
You know, that's something that has happened in other communities, other counties. It hasn't happened here in San Diego. In other counties where they could not find a place and there was public opposition, they actually released them transient with a GPS locator on their ankle. That makes it very difficult to supervise a sexually violent predator. That way you can't control their curfew and know where they're going to be.
Does the DA have a say in this whole housing situation?
We do have a say. We are permitted to make a comment just like the public is, and usually the DA does make a recommendation as to where she thinks the person should be housed. But the decision has already been made for release, and we're just like anyone else. We can provide input, but the decision will be made by the court.
How will he be supervised if and when he's released?
When they're out in the community, they are on GPS monitor. They have to have weekly therapy, both private therapy and group therapy. They have to have polygraph examinations on a frequent basis, and the GPS allows us to have them be on curfew and be in their residence usually from 10 till 6 the next morning.
What happens if he violates these terms of this conditional release?
If the Liberty Healthcare believes it's a significant enough violation, or the DA's office believes it's a significant enough violation, we can file a petition to have him recommitted.
And we have to end on this one, but are you aware of other cases where formerly sexually violent predators have successfully reintegrated into society?
We actually had one just recently here in San Diego County. I don't know that I'd use the successfully reintegrated term, but we had one that was released off of outpatient therapy and found to no longer be a sexually violent predator. He still has to report his address and where he's living as part of the sex offender registration law, but other than that, he's free to come and go as he pleases.
All right, John Rice, Deputy District Attorney, thanks so much for the update.
Thank you.
Families who use food stamps are getting $36 less because a temporary stimulus boost expired on the first of the month. The 5% cut is affecting businesses and ultimately communities. Reporter Megan Burks went to the City Heights Farmers Market to gauge the impact there.
The City Heights Farmers Market was just as it is every Saturday. Burmese refugees carried enough greens to fill both arms. East African farmers sold kale and spinach. Kids shared their strollers with massive bags of navel oranges. But things are beginning to change at the market. It became the first in the county to accept food stamps, often called EBT, 5 years ago.
I have noticed an increase in concern from people that have EBT. You know, they're more hesitant to take out money. They just don't know what's going to happen with it, so they're being a little more conservative.
If the market's 200 or so EBT customers spend $36 less a month, it could result in a loss of $7,200. Duffy says that could drive away farmers who sell produce at the market and leave a lasting impact on a community many call a food desert.
The whole point of this market was to bring fresh fruits and vegetables into neighborhoods like City Heights to make healthy organic food accessible. And EBT is really what's holding that all together.
Congress is currently considering deeper cuts to food stamps. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
About 50 years ago, the Chula Vista Bayfront was cut off to people who live in the area. Interstate 5 was built and a decision was made to focus on industrial development. Now, access to the water is being restored as part of a major revitalization plan in the South Bay City. Chula Vista is the county's second largest city with more than 250,000 residents. Its bayfront is just a 15-minute drive from the San Diego airport and the world's busiest border crossing between the U.S. and Mexico. After decades of living in the shadow of industrial plants, a new master plan development was approved last summer. And the first thing to go this year was the old South Bay power plant. Wearing construction hats, holding shovels, officials from Chula Vista, the Port District, and a private developer break ground on the next phase, the extension of H Street off the 5 freeway out to the bayfront. Mayor Cheryl Cox.
Probably for the first time in 60 years, H Street will open from the hills to the beach. Doesn't sound good, doesn't it?
The idea is to create more direct access for folks to get to restaurants, businesses, and the marina. Councilmember Patricia Aguilar.
It's difficult to get to the Chula Vista Bayfront, and as the mayor mentioned, the other streets to get you here don't go all the way to the east side. But 8th Street will. 8th Street will.
The extension is expected to be done within a year, and it's part of a bigger plan to add hotels, convention facilities, homes, and shops, creating more than 7,000 construction jobs along the way and 2,200 permanent positions to attract more visitors to Southern California's largest remaining coastal development property. City officials say the $7 million roadway extension represents the joint cooperation between Chula Vista, the Port District, and private developers. A proposal to build a BMX bicycle track in Escondido is facing opposition. Peggy Pico talks with the leaders on both sides of the issue.
Bicycle motocross, or BMX, is a popular extreme race of single-speed bicycles on a dirt track filled with hills and obstacles. It became an Olympic sport 5 years ago, and now there's a proposal to build North County's first BMX track. But a group called Friends of Kit Carson Park are opposed to the idea. Joining me are Vince McCurdy, who operates 2 BMX tracks in Kearney Mesa and Lakeside and is proposing the new track in Escondido, and also here Grant Taylor, president of Friends of Kit Carson Park. Welcome.
Thank you.
Grant, for those not familiar with Kit Carson Park, how would you describe it and how is it being used now?
Well, it's a wonderful place. I mean, full of softball fields and skating areas, tennis courts. But what makes Kit Carson Park unique, I think, is the open spaces and the wildlife habitats, which people use every single day with their families and enjoy it.
And Vince, how big would the proposed BMX track that you'd like to put in there, how big would that be and what would that look like?
It'd be 1,000-foot long, and it looks similar to what you showed on the TV there. It's a 28-foot wide, 1,000-foot long, and it goes in a big circle right back to the beginning.
So about 2 acres or a little less?
Well, about an acre the track will be sitting on.
Okay.
The other acres for bleachers and spectators and whatever else we need to operate the thing.
Okay, and Grant, how come your group is against putting this BMX track in Kit Carson Park?
Well, to begin with, first of all, we are very much unopposed to the BMX track in Escondido. We think it'd make a great addition to the community for Escondido. Not Kit Carson Park for the following reasons. Kit Carson Park, as I said, is a very unique place. And commercialization of Kit Carson Park by having a business venture of this type set up, and that everything that would bring with it, the lighting, the loudspeaker system, the fencing, the bleachers, everything that go with it, the traffic congestion, we think is highly inappropriate for Kit Carson Park.
And I just want to say, Vince, on this, I'd like you to respond to Grant's concerns and also people who say, listen, we want to protect the park from these commercial interests and we want to keep it more in its native habitat. What's your response to that?
Well, the piece of property that we're using already had it empty on it, and it's just been moved up and gone, so it's just a dirt lot at this point. We want to reuse that dirt lot.
Okay, and
as for the impact, the traffic and stuff would be minimal because we also be operating after all the traffic has gone through. People have been already gotten home, doing what they need.
So it'd be at
School's
night.
been out. It would be in the evening.
I see. And I do have to say, Grant, now I understand you mentioned there's softball fields already in the park, and if this is a dirt lot in this 300-acre park, how is it different than just having another softball field there?
Well, certainly we're not sure that it would be having another softball field, in fact, would be a good idea. But what we are saying is that something like a BMX track is something much different than a softball field. Softball fields are already there. They do not contain typically, loudspeakers and things of that sort. They're already there. The park is acclimated to those softball fields. The leagues come and they play. We feel that a BMX track there would just add to problems that are already existing in and around the park, and create a visually kind of a scar on the park. I mean, Mr. McCurdy says that it would, not make a big impact visually, but I differ with him.
I just want to interrupt you. You mentioned a few problems already existing in the park. What sort of problems?
I was speaking primarily of traffic problems.
Traffic congestion, yeah. I see. Now, Vince, you are also asking the city of Escondido to help pay for the park, yes. I understand, a little bit more than $100,000. How would the track benefit the city if they were to buy into this?
Well, we'd get into a lease program with them, and then we would pay back, and then through the leases, and then all the people would come in and we buy gas, whatever, go to the stores, eat food. They would all tax revenue in that thing. So every month we would pay them to be there.
So the economic, so you would pay back the $100,000
pay back the $100,000 and then plus after that.
Okay.
And also too that there'd be zero maintenance for them. So they would have no employees there, no anything. We take care of insurance, all maintenance, all the ground maintenance. Anything that's done with that, there won't be any more.
Because your company would handle that.
Yes, we'd handle all that.
And Grant, we're going to have to end on this one, but is there any part of this proposal or that could be modified that would gain your support of having it there on Kit Carson Park?
That's a difficult question to answer, but I would say if it involves what Mr. McCurdy is proposing in Kit Carson Park, I would have to answer no to that.
Okay. Well, Grant Taylor and Vince McCurdy, thank you so much. And there's a whole lot more on our website about this.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next News Hour, more personal stories of health care reform and how one woman with a pre-existing condition has benefited. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Children of migrant farm workers sometimes face a life on the move, meaning their education is continually interrupted. The federal government is helping them catch up through the Migrant Education program. From our Fronteras desk, Joe Replogo looks at how it's working in one of Southern California's major agricultural areas.
Close to 200 teenagers filed into a swanky event center in the Imperial Valley town of Heber on a recent Friday morning. These high schoolers, nearly all of them Latino, are here for a college prep seminar. Some of their parents have probably worked in the hayfields that surround the place. The message for these kids: go to college.
My parents came here like your parents. They came here with a dream.
Jaime Carias is a recruiter for the College Assistance Migrant Program, or CAMP, a federally funded program that gives students from migrant families intensive support to help them get through their first year of college. Carias knows how hard that is.
First in my family to graduate from high school.
He's also the first in his family to get a college degree and the first to have a career, not just a job. Many students here will boast such firsts, and some of them will thank the federal Migrant Education program for helping them succeed. Edward R. Murrow's 1960 documentary Harvest of Shame shed light on the dismal lives of American farm workers and the educational hurdles faced by their children.
She really likes to go to school, but she had to miss last week because she had to keep the baby for me to work.
The documentary helped spur the passage of federal legislation to improve opportunities for migrant students. California has by far the largest migrant education program, serving some 80,000 students. Support includes tutoring and help making up coursework and credits they might miss because their families move around during the school year.
You start the year and they teach you something, and then when you move, they teach you something completely different.
Up until recently, Annalie would start each school year in Hollister, some 8 hours north, and end it in the Imperial Valley. Sine's mother is a farm worker, but Annalie's path is shaping up to be a much different one.
I was planning on going to UC Santa Cruz and becoming a marine biologist.
Diego Lopez says migrant parents seem to increasingly prioritize education for their children. Lopez is the principal of Frank Wright Middle School in Imperial.
In the past, for economic reasons, the families would take the kids with them. And in many cases, like in the case of my wife, they were also part of the labor force.
Now, he says, parents are more likely to make arrangements so that their kids can stay in the same school throughout the year while parents follow the crops.
And so a lot of these kids stay with relatives, an aunt, a grandma, a neighbor. And so it's a hardship either way.
Academically, at least, those tough decisions may be paying off. According to data from the California Department of Education, migrant students in the Imperial Valley graduate at slightly higher rates than the student population as a whole, and fewer of them drop out of school. Statewide, on the other hand, migrant students still lag behind the general population. All of this data, however, isn't entirely reliable. In a recent report, the California State Auditor's Office criticized the State Department of Education for failing to evaluate the effectiveness of its migrant program.
Good morning again. We're going to begin the...
Back at the college prep seminar in Heber, many migrant students said they were grateful for the extra boost they were getting from the migrant education program.
Oh, it has been awesome because they call you in, they inform you, they look over your grades, tell you
okay, you can fix this, go to tutoring. They offer a lot of workshops where you can go and find help if you need help in school.
Mosqueda says she's applying to 3 state universities and wants to study kinesiology. Her parents?
I don't even think they made it to high school. They've practically done everything on what they know and stuff, so it's a great motivation that they believe I can make something out of myself and not go through the struggle they're going with right now. So
for now, Mosqueda will seek out and face her challenges in the classroom. Jill Replogle, KPBS News.
Cooler weather as we head toward the weekend. Look for increasing clouds along the coast. Temperatures dropping from the 70s into the 60s. For the inland valleys, mid-80s tomorrow, then a big drop as we head into the weekend. Sunny in the mountains, but look how much the temperature there drops, more than 20 degrees in 2 days. The desert will also get a cool down under plenty of sunshine. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.